Welcome back to America's Commercial Real Estate Show. I am Michael Bull. Thank you for being with us. This segment is brought to you by CommercialAgentSuccess.com. This is the ultimate and cloud-based video training for commercial agents. I know it's good because I created it. Check it out at CommercialAgentSuccess.com. Well, today we're talking about crowdfunding. And now I want to talk to Darren Powderly, who's co-founder with CrowdStreet. He's here in Studio One. And Darren, I want to talk to you about kind of the investor side, the retail investor. It's kind of cool that, you know, commercial real estate's being democratized, is how you say it? Democratized.
Yes, it is.
I can say that. So anybody can go online now and invest kind of relatively small amounts of money in some cases in commercial real estate. First, in brevity, what are kind of the different types of crowdfunding sites that investors might encounter if they're out there looking?
Sure. Investors can go to a direct-to-investor site, which is an online platform to meet sponsors. Those are the investment firms that they want to invest directly with. And they can actually sign that investment firm's paperwork. So they become a member of that sponsor's legal entity. And that's the direct-to-investor model. Or they could go and find another platform type where they become a member of the crowdfunding platform's entity. And then they could go to actually the individual sponsor's website, maybe. Other than a platform, which is kind of like a marketplace, you know, they could find a sponsor who has their own website and go directly to them.
Give me a sample of each one. Who's a sample of a direct to the sponsor site?
Sure. Example would be Sterling Bay in Chicago, Illinois. Sterling Bay is one of the better sponsors in Chicago. Mm-hmm. They are a developer. They develop like the McDonald's headquarters and the Google headquarters and so forth. So if you go to sterlingbay.com, you'll see an investor login right there, and you can register and get access to some of their private offerings.
And a sample of a site where you're investing in the website, the crowdfunding site's entity, and then they're investing with the sponsor.
Sure. Cadre out of New York City is an example of that, right? You're investing in a Cadre offering that is then investing that money into a sponsor.
Okay, and then a third example of the third option.
Well, I'll have to use CrowdStreet in that case,
you go.
right?
Yours, yes.
So CrowdStreet is a direct-to-investor marketplace where we connect you directly with the sponsor, and you can sign their paperwork.
And you have multiple sponsors that...
Right now, so yes, we have done 250 live offerings on the CrowdStreet marketplace. Most of those are single assets. We've done some smaller funds as well. Just recently, we just announced, because of investor demand, we announced our own portfolio fund. It's called the Blended Portfolio. It's kind of like an index of all the live offerings on the CrowdStreet marketplace, where an investor could say, oh, wow, I can invest in 1 or 2 or 3 deals individually, or I could go into the blended portfolio and get exposure to almost all of these.
And that's very interesting, because I think of crowdfunding usually as one project. It's very project-based, mm-hmm. So that that's kind of what's been really popular now. So now you can, it's kind of like a mutual fund is the way I might think of it, right?
Sure. Yeah.
You're investing and you're in several deals, kind of spray and pray, but
right,
no, it's not pray on your account. You guys check these out as best you can.
We do.
Yeah.
We do.
Well, it's interesting. So there doesn't seem, or you tell me, is there a lot of people doing that, or is it most of it direct to a specific project?
You know, the industry is evolving, right? So like CrowdStreet has announced this blended portfolio, which is a pool of all the assets on the CrowdStreet marketplace. Other platforms have created REITs or e-REITs, which is kind of like electronic REIT, right? There's others that are just simply, you know, had let go of the single assets and specifically focus on fund vehicles. And so it is kind of like a mutual fund. It is kind of like an ETF, right? Mm-hmm. Picking individual deals requires a lot of work. It requires a lot of expertise. Mm-hmm. And so if you're a power user, if you're an experienced investor, right, in commercial real estate, you like that. Mm-hmm. But if you're a little less, if you're kind of more of a lay person, right? Mm-hmm. You know that you want to have commercial real estate in your portfolio. You even with the access and all the information at your fingertips, you kind of feel a little overwhelmed. Maybe it's better to put it into a basket of deals.
And that's interesting that you brought that up, because I know there's a lot of people out there that know they would like to have the diversity of having some real estate in their portfolio, but they don't have a few $1 million to go call me and invest in it, but they want to go in. So I guess that's one of the benefits of a kind of a portfolio type of fund like that, but also just of crowdfunding in general. Right?
Crowdfunding in general, exactly.
Yeah.
And we like to call it online investing because of the fact that individual investors can get access for the very first time to some of the best real estate operators in the country with very, very small amounts. And we were talking about the CCIM networks and just real estate professionals as a whole, which make up about 25% of our population, right? So they're doing deals with developers and some of the sponsors out there, but they're not often able to participate in those deals, but they'd like to. And honestly, in most cases, it'd be a great way to build wealth, right? You earn your fee providing service, but if you can get a piece of the action, that would be great. Not in all cases, of course. Everyone needs to pick. But what we're doing is giving investors a way to take a small amount in a very big deal.
And that brings up the question, who are the investors that are investing online in commercial real estate? Who is it?
So we do a survey every year. We're doing one right now with our investor community. We have 49,000 investors around the nation. They are our investor members.
49,000?
Yeah, it's
that's a big number.
Well, it's a big number insofar as they've all come to our site and they've registered. So they've opted in, right?
Right.
Now that's great.
Are they all accredited investors?
Not all of them. About 30,000 of the 50-ish thousand are accredited, or at least have indicated that they are. They need to prove it to us by providing some documentation
when they
make an investment. That's correct.
Okay.
But so we survey all of them, right? And we have a nice response rate, and we've got this great growing data, analysis of who our investors are. And what we have found is that the active investors, the ones that count, the ones that have made one or more investments to date, are typically highly educated, right? They typically, live, in the regions of the nation like Atlanta, some of the big metros, coastal cities, Denver, with the exception of Chicago. So big primary cities for the most part. And they've invested in real estate before. Maybe they bought a single family residential or duplex or something like that. And now they want to graduate from sort of like, the minors to the big leagues. They want to get, and they're able to do that now with an experience like CrowdStreet.
Okay. What are the potential pitfalls for these investors investing in crowdfunding out there?
There's a lot of pitfalls, and investors need to, ask a lot of good questions, and they need to, obviously enter into this with a healthy dose of skepticism, but yet not fear, right? Do your homework and, look into the platform, make sure that they have a track record, right? That they've been around for a while, and what have their returns been? Our return profile, by the way, is right on the site. It's, again, transparency is absolutely critical in this business. It's one of the big benefits of it, right? It's more transparent than the offline country club sort of network. Very much so. So look at the platform, make sure they have a great track record, and the type of offerings that they offer. For instance, we only specialize in institutional quality real estate, but others do single family residential, or you could get loans, senior debt on single family residential. There's different platforms out there that meet different investment, tastes and criteria. And then look at the sponsor, definitely look at the sponsor.
Big time, yeah.
I mean, probably more important than the platform is the sponsor, right? That's the issuer of the offering and the one who's going to execute on the business model, the one who's going to give you distributions, right? The one who's going to, when they sell it, hopefully according to the business plan, return your principal and the return on principal, right? And then look at the property, make sure it's the property type, and and then look at the return structure, right? Are the returns seem fair, right, based upon what you know in the market, and but ask a lot of questions, read all the materials. Of course, the nice thing about a platform like ours is you have volumes of information at your fingertips, including media assets like drone footage and video interviews, and then we give the investors a chance to ask questions via a Q&A format online. It's kind of like a chatbot type of interaction, and then also office hours with the sponsor, right? So investors who want to speak with the sponsor By the way, it's only about 10% of the investors actually feel like they have to have a need to have a phone call, a one-on-one phone call, because they're doing all this, they're getting all this information on their own. So.
And do the investors need to be accredited, or can they be non-accredited? And if you will, if you can give the audience just the brief definition of accredited.
Sure. Brief definition of accredited is according to the Securities and Exchange Commission. It basically defines accredited investor as somebody with $1 million of net worth or $200,000 annual income as a single person, $300,000 as a married couple, with the expectation that that'll continue. And so there are platforms out there, real estate, crowdfunding or investing platforms that can accommodate both accredited and non-accredited. Our policy is to be open for both. We just happen to have the majority of our offerings available for accredited investors today.
Okay. And what about liquidity, Darren? I think a lot of investors that are used to online investing in small amounts of money are used to it in a more liquid environment, right? The stock market, let's say. But I guess they should consider, or tell me, should they consider real estate as, hey, you're going to be in there until the sponsor is ready to sell?
Today, that is correct. Liquidity is not one of the benefits of private real estate investing. As a matter of fact, it's probably in some cases a con. But if you accept that and you understand that going in, that something came up and you really needed the money. There are some ways to get money out of some of these deals, but sometimes it's not available, right? And make sure you read the documents, the subscription agreement around that, capital calls, as well as the ability to sort of request your money back. By and large, you just consider it like not available, right? Okay. And so that's why commercial real estate, especially through an online platform like ours, it's a portion of your investable assets, right? It shouldn't, it's got to be a fully diverse portfolio, right? And this commercial real estate as an alternative asset as an appropriate allocation in a truly diversified portfolio.
Sure, and that makes sense. And it seems investing through crowdfunding in commercial real estate, using your self-directed IRA would seem like a great way to invest in a self-directed IRA, especially, into commercial real estate, especially since, and most of them I would think, you don't have to worry about a capital call, right? You invest and you're in, and you're done, right? So is that a great, is it a good opportunity for using your self-directed IRA? Yeah,
there's several $1 trillion being managed through self-directed IRA accounts across the nation. We've created a partnership with the top 8 of them around the nation to do just that, to allow individual investors to use their IRA accounts to invest in commercial real estate as an asset class. So definitely.
Yeah, that seems like it, because if you invest in individual property, your money, if more money has to go into the property, it has to be through the self-directed IRA. You can't have debt. There's a lot of hurdles and challenges you got to watch out for if you're investing directly in commercial real estate. But going in as a limited partner somewhere seems like a great alternative. So the other question is, why should a retail investor invest in crowdfunding in commercial real estate where potentially it's not liquid, versus investing in real estate through a REIT where it is more liquid?
Now, there are publicly traded REITs. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Okay, so publicly traded REITs, I think, still have a place in a diversified real estate portfolio. I own publicly traded REITs, and I think that they're good. I mean, they fluctuate with the market sometimes. This overall stock market. I think in October you saw publicly traded REITs shares down, right? And so you have that exposure to fluctuations. But whereas private real estate, it takes longer to adjust. It's not directly correlated to the swoons of the stock market, right, up and down. Right. It's as steady as she goes, right? The other thing that's interesting about private real estate as opposed to, publicly traded REITs is that, if you're investing in a deal in Atlanta, right, it's very different than investing in a deal in Seattle. Right, and even within Atlanta, you have different property types. You have ground-up development versus acquisition. You have income versus, total return versus, type of offerings. And so, it's a big country out there, and there are many different forces at work which could cause a local real estate market to continue to grow while some other markets are struggling, as we know. And so that's a that's the beauty of being able to pick, individual assets, right? That you'd like to invest in.
I guess if you're looking at asset allocation, you're trying to diversify, and you're in the big time in the stock market, and you go into a REIT. How much have you diversified if the value is going to go up and down in the stock market, as opposed to going into private equity like this, where it's on a different run, right? It's not going to fluctuate like the stock market,
right?
Are there also potentially less fees for that retail investor to offset their return in one or the other? Are they equal, or is it?
Yeah, so one of the other main benefits to individual investors is very low fee. In fact, there's zero fees for investors on our platform, and other platforms have fees, but typically lower. One of the big things that the non-traded REIT, there's a segment called private REITs. Many of those had high loads and high commissions and high fees, and everyone was getting a handout. The total load on our cost on the vehicle was like 10 to 15%. Now, thankfully, that's going away. The sun has set on those high load, and we're really filling the void, And so, zero fees for investors at CrowdStreet, right? And then some of the funds have like 1% annual management fee, which is really low. I mean, fee compression is happening across the financial services industry, but it still seems to be pretty lofty in the private real estate space. In our case, it's the fee compression is one of the big benefits to the investors, and we're sort of advancing that part of the space. Now, sponsors still make fees. Sponsors pay CrowdStreet fees. We have to, keep the lights on. That is our model. So sponsors pay us fees. Investors pay us zero fees. Okay,
so there are fees there, but generally speaking, the fees are less than the REITs have?
Very much so.
Okay.
Yeah, we're talking, 2 to 3 to 4% versus 10 to 15%. I mean, it's a significant improvement over the old way.
Okay. What would you leave our audience with, Darren, related to crowdfunding and commercial real estate, maybe about the growth of the future?
Sure. I think that now that online investing in commercial real estate is here, it's only going to continue to expand. And so I think we're just scratching the surface. I mean, there's already, tens of thousands of active investors in, investing online in commercial real estate, and that's just the beginning. There are 16 million accredited investors in the United States, of course, many other non-accredited investors, and the other beautiful thing about it is that it's now sort of proven enough, and there more and more quality sponsors are getting on board. They view this direct-to-investor trend via the online channel as a better business model, a more economical business model for them and the investors, and it just makes a ton of sense. So when you have some of the companies that are licensing our software or putting deals on our marketplace and having this experience and being like, wow, this is great for us, it's great for the investor, let's invest more in it next year. Yeah. So it's going to continue.
Well, I think you're right. And it's interesting, too, because I think just commercial real estate market in general is more transparent. When you look at this show, for example, it's free. People can listen in and really learn a lot about commercial real estate and the sectors and the forecast and the economy and the things that are impacting each sector and even cities and types of deals A, B, and C. So there's more transparency. I believe it is going to grow. Great information from you today, Darren. Thank you for joining us.
All right, Michael. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and if you'd like more information, check out their website. It's CrowdStreet.com, and we'll have the link at our show website, CREshow.com. Well, thank you for joining us. I appreciate you sharing the show, your comments. Let us know what you think, and touch base with us on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn or wherever you hang out. Until next week, be sure that you always lead, learn, and laugh, and join us for America's Commercial Real Estate Show.